So as I was saying earlier, this segment is set up kind of like a conversation. Jesse's got a lot of knowledge, and so I'm going to kind of pick your brain around a handful of different topics, but then at the end, we're definitely going to leave some room for Q&A. So if things come up, jot them down, think about them. We would love to know your questions. That's really why she's here, as a resource to you all. But to kick us off, I'm definitely going to ask you to say a little bit about yourself. Who is Jesse?
Well, I'm a 40-year-old lesbian woman, born and raised, like I said, California, in the really ghetto, hard parts of LA. I was also an EMT down there for 7 years, and I've seen a lot of stuff and done a lot of things. And I think with all of the experience and being around a very hard society to be accepted by has made me really great at what I do here in Seattle.
So speaking of what you do here, tell us why the security industry.
Well, I think my whole family and myself, we always try to help other people, try to help the underdog. Since I was in high school, kids are getting picked on. I'd always go and I was big and pretty badass, so I'd go and beat them up and protect them and save them. I realized I started working my trip. If you guys are familiar with the Lobby Bar. That was my first gay bar that I used to work for. It got me started on Capitol Hill. And then, I've also managed one of the gay nightclubs for 7 years with a team of 6 under me. So I think I just want to help people and protect them and make sure they feel safe in their space.
So tell us a little bit more about Straight Up. How did you end up there with this kind of co-ownership?
It was actually not accidental, but it just kind of fell in my lap, which is wild. My co-owner, John Lorenas, he's been in the security industry for a while as well. We've both worked under some pretty shitty, horrible security companies together. He gave me a ring one day, and he said he was starting his own security company, and he wanted me to come work for him. So I wanted to set up a lunch with him because I wanted to know more about it. And him and I kind of have the same shared values, which was making it a safe workspace for everyone. And like I said, the whole ethnic-owned LGBTQIA was this is something I totally stand behind 100%. Me being as a Latin female in the 90s, I was definitely not accepted by close family members and family, and I was shut out, and I wasn't able to have a voice and be able to be okay with who I am. Wasn't really proud to be a lesbian because it was looked at like terrible. So being with someone who he understands the same thing as well. He's half Mexican and Vietnamese. He's been through a lot of the same racial things that I have been with. This for us is like a match made in heaven, and this was us for we can change the security game and change it, be different.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's so cool to be to know that you're part of changing the landscape of these kinds of things, right? And that you're empowered to do that. So speaking of creating inclusive and safe environments and how you think about your staff and preparing them and making sure that they can live out the values of your company in the places that they work, how do you kind of make those decisions around vetting and training your personnel?
Vetting and training my personnel is not necessarily do you need to have security experience. When I'm looking at your resume, I need you to have at least 5 to 6 years of customer service, because to me, security is customer service based, period. And then we have a shadowing. I train you how to do IDs. I'll train you at a club or a bar, and then I'll have you what you're going to look at if someone's over intoxicated. These are the signs and symptoms of it. Just on the job training. We do, and we try to get people with from the community as well, and then who have a really good attitude and who actually want to be there and do their job.
That makes a ridiculous amount of sense. So tell me a little bit about what makes Straight Up uniquely qualified to serve Capitol Hill.
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's see, I do have some notes. I don't want to veer off here. Let's see, I'm not even actually seeing them right now. So I'm just gonna say what makes us it's personality, it's respect. It's respect with the patron, respect with the client, respect with the co-owners. I think there are a lot of people, as you see, when I am training my staff as well, we're the first face you see when you come into a club, a bar, a restaurant, and if you are on your phone or not paying attention and being rude and mean, then their first reaction is going to be kind of like shitty. You know, they're going to come in and be like, oh, this place kind of sucks already. You know, so you want someone to be like, hey, how you doing today? Blah, 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 and just have a like short conversation and then like have them invite them in and have them come in. So I think the difference for us is we're trying to have people with like just more respect, you know, more respect to the people, more respect to the community. And I think a lot of that is just not, it's taken for granted and not given. Does that kind of answer it?
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think before we kind of like launch into the securing places part, I'm curious like how going with that training and prepping your staff, kind of going with Capitol Hill's general theme of kind of de-escalation and nonviolence and like lots of different business owners' perspectives on how to diffuse situations. You know, what do you think of and how do you teach your folks to deal with high conflict or high tension situations?
That's a very great question. And, you know, first and foremost, you know, when you are at an escalating or de-escalating a situation, you always need to remain like a very calm demeanor. You need to maintain relaxed and like confident in yourself. Also, too, just to show you guys my tools, we are an unarmed security company, so this is what I carry is a flashlight, and this is a like magnifying glass to help me with IDs for microprint. So these are the only tools that I carry, besides the tools of my mouth and my mind. And like I said, when you're coming for escalating, I have lots of little notes that I made. I basically, too, if I have to grab someone and like, you know, escort them outside the building, you like to let them know like I'm here to help you, not hurt you. A lot of them think, you know, your defense mechanism is up, so they want to get rowdy and they want to fight. With alcohol, there comes a lot of that. Something as simple as, hey, you know, you want a cigarette? We use, my co-owner doesn't even smoke cigarettes, but he buys packs of cigarettes, and he uses them to help de-escalate the situation because sometimes someone is very upset and they just need a cigarette. So we use things like that. I also like try to, if they're with a group of people, I try to ask their friends for help. You know, like usually if one of their friends is really drunk and you go up to the other friend and you're like, hey, you know, your friend's pretty drunk, you know, you want to, either I'm going to have to put my hands on him and escort him out, or can you help me? By me being really nice and respectful to them when they first came in, at the end of the night, that ends up helping me. So then they end up being like, hey, this chick's really cool. Don't be a dick, friend, and let's get this guy out of here. So.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Some of the tools.
Cool. Well, that's kind of the personnel side. We're going to revisit. We're going to loop back a little bit more to people interactions near the end. But, like, let's jump into securing spaces. So, you know, as a security professional, one of the things that came up when we were trying to design this program was, like, how do I keep my business safe? Like, in terms of tangible things, like, is there a lock that's super magical that I should know about? Like, should I install security cameras? You know, what are the things that a business owner evaluates when they're thinking about securing their space?
Well, I think they need to think of, you know, there's different places that if they're, you know, people don't know if they need a security guard or not. If you find yourself bartending, crowd management watching, and then you have to worry about checking IDs and you're really busy, then you probably need like an actual security guard at the bar or the restaurant you work at. There is no magical lock or camera or window that is going to stop someone, unfortunately, from breaking into your building. I believe, you know, cameras are more affordable now, and I think if you have cameras up and like posters saying, hey, you're being viewed or watched, it may deter someone from breaking into your place. I also believe in like the lighting. If, you know, like places you walk by and the light turns on really bright, I feel like you want to keep kind of lights inside of your place on, but then if you have too many lights on, you don't want them to see like all your supplies and stuff like that. So if there's a way you can maybe put them towards the back, stuff like that. I mean, it's just kind of really hard. There is more, obviously, if you can afford it, shatterproof windows, which after the whole, you know, CHOP thing, we all know that shatterproof windows would be a way to go. I'm not sure the pricing on those. There is different locks too. Like a lot of bars just kind of have like a little lock in the middle and lock on top. There's a lot more better locks you can get, but it just depends if it's like windows or like a full door. You know, so you can go like a full door that's, you know, not open to a window, you can put like a huge lock on the back, and then it goes from the middle to the top to the bottom. So then if someone's trying to kick your door and break in, they're pretty much not going to be able to, compared if you have like a flimsier lock. So I would definitely like do your homework on that and just double check it out. Things are a lot more affordable, but it's just really hard. It just depends on the area that you live in.
Are there other, like you talked a little bit about leaving lights on, the right amount of lights, notifying folks that they're on camera. Are there other kind of environmental things that you can control, like maybe as a bar, but also as a retailer, maybe line of sight or where you put your POS or things like that?
There's those things. It's just, like I said, it's really hard to say. I can't say there's one thing that's going to make your place be safe and work. So like I said, it's just a lot of different things. I also come to find too is, I do work on Capitol Hill, and I've done it for the last 10 years, and one of the main people that I use is like a lot of the homeless people. I'm friends with many of the homeless people because they're on the streets all the time, and if any, I help them out, give them a cigarette, a couple bucks, buy them a piece of pizza, and I let them know, like, hey, I'm working here. If they need some water, or sometimes, they'll come and we'll pay them to pick up cigarette butts, but like the homeless person who's on the street 24/7 can be your eyes and ears as well, besides you having like security stuff. If you could just, treat them right and do something for them, I think just having the respect and having people like look out for your place is kind of the way I would go.
That's a really good idea. So like if you're thinking about hiring security firms or making the decisions about who you should be talking to, are there kind of basic things that obviously there's basic needs that you're meeting as a security firm, but like should a business owner have like a handful of questions that they ask themselves when they're looking to engage with a security company?
Yes, I believe so. It depends. Like I said, you always want to do, now we have access to the computers online. You have access to Yelp and all that stuff like that. So you can see the backgrounds on the security companies. The questions you want to ask, I guess would kind of be up to the establishment that's ran, whether it's a nightclub, a bar, a restaurant. Like I said, those are all different terms. It is really hard to, as someone who hires security all the time, I am currently hiring and firing a lot because not all the security guards, some security guards want to be like a super cop, and they take it to their head and they get this power and they think they can be this awesome person and beat someone up for no reason, and it's like, no, I fire you right away. So it's kind of, that's a really good question. It's kind of like I said, depends on the establishment that you're trying to run. I would definitely do the homework on the security company, and then like you want someone, like I said, but you just want someone who has like morals, who lives in the community, who understands the community, who's this and that, right for it, and stuff like that. Just ask those deep questions.
Wow, that sounds like straight up security. I wasn't paid to say that. So another question that we get when I'm talking to particularly nightlife folks, but not just the folks who run the establishments, but patrons of the establishments. There's like this, why didn't the bouncer ... So tell us a little bit about kind of like the legal parameters that a security company or security personnel are subject to when they're at a location.
Ooh, okay. Just to correct you, bouncer is a very old term. We do not like to use that anymore. We like to use security guard. We are professionals, and we do have our guard cards. That's just a little bit outdated. And what was the other one? Sorry, I missed it.
Oh, like where do they have authority? What can they do? What can a security guard do? What are their limitations? Are there physical limitations? Like, can they not go past the threshold of a business? Can they get involved in something that's going on the sidewalk? Like, what are they allowed to do and not allowed to do if they're hired by an establishment?
Got it. I got my little quick notes here. So basically, it depends on the job. It depends on the job that we're agreed upon with the hiring. So if we cover like apartments, if we're doing an apartment building, and the apartment manager just wants us to check inside the apartment building, not outside. So our job is you only do the certain amount of inside, not outside of the building. It's very specific to each site is very specific for the client. Basically, we are here to do what the client tells us to do. If it's nothing like too crazy that we like disagree with or have any agreements with, we're not allowed to like walk up to you and punch you in the face and start beating you up and just because we can. That's definitely not our job. We are allowed to protect ourselves. There is such thing. We have like citizens arrest. You know, if we feel we have to handcuff a person and sit on them until the cops come. If we have to call them to arrest them, we do have that right to do that. And then I believe it's this year. Before it wasn't a thing because it's happened so many times. If you spit on a security guard or hit one of us, it is now a felony. So we can also get them, you know, towed away and arrested, which you don't really want to do. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to. We're not cop callers. We don't want to call the cops because we all have our own mixed feelings about the cops. But it is ultimately my decision or my security guard's decision. If we feel we need medical, or if I feel I do need the police here, I will call them. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah. I mean, say a little bit more about that. Like, how do you and your staff interact with first responders, like the police or firefighters or paramedics?
Yeah, for me, I mean, like I said, from my personal experience, I know if someone is, you know, there's a difference between blacked out or being on drugs, or if they're mixing, you know, even if you mix, let's just say, cocaine with alcohol, that turns to another drug. And now the kids are doing, I don't even know what the drugs are doing these days, but they're like really out there. I do have an example, one of the main bars that are on the Hill, I'm not going to say any names, but we were working at this establishment, and this lady was clearly all over the place, you know, running around, hitting people. So it took two of us, because we're very strong with alcohol and drugs, it took two of us to escort her out of the building, and then where there she was, like, running in the middle of the street, almost got hit by a car. So I'm like, okay, like, this is out of our control, and I can't, like, this is a busy place. I have to stand out here and, like, I'm watching her because I feel she's my responsibility. So I did call 911 and then had medical come out. The problem is when the medical team came out, they, you know, she was allowed to say no, and they didn't really transport her, they can't really take her. So then the cops come, and there was like 6 or 8 cops, which of course that's overdoing it. And they allow her to run back in the establishment, and then they stare at me. And I'm like, whoa. No, I just escorted her out of here safely and peacefully, and you guys let her back in. So it's your job to go in there and grab her out. So then they went inside and they escorted her out. But then they ended up just leaving her and didn't do anything for her. Then the next thing you know, she's hopping in someone's Uber with like 5 people, and I'm pulling her out of an Uber. So I just stayed with her as long as I could to about 4 or 5 in the morning. I had to go home. I think at this point for me, disappointment with the police, because I feel like if they would have taken her in the drunk tank, clearly she was out of her mind. Maybe it would have stopped her from being maybe possibly raped, or who knows what happened after. So calling the cops it's super frustrating. And of course, you know, that they're not getting the, you know, full end of the story either as well. So it's not like we hate the cops or anything like that. It's just if they can maybe do a little more and be there and like help us out a little bit more. But I just feel like right now there's a lot of weirdness going on, and the cops aren't really doing anything. So I'm not sure if their hands are tied, what their rules are. But like I said, if I need help, I don't really, besides my security guards, the upper hand is to call the police. So I hope that they do respond in time and help. But this all depends.
Very like situational dependent. Tell us about, so I know there's terminology like house security, or all their security is in-house, or you can hire an external security. So what are the differences there, and how is that relevant?
So there's a big difference. We'll start with, and it's not, I think it's frowned upon by a lot of people if it's like in-house security, which if you do have a really good in-house security team, I think it shouldn't be frowned upon. But the problems that I have seen with it firsthand is, you know, we're external security it's our job. We're professionally trained. These are the things that we do. These are what we're taught. This is what we know. And then for external security, we also carry our own amount of different insurances and liabilities, because there's a lot of liability that will either go to us if it's our fault as a security company, as a security owner. If one of my guys messes up, lets this underage person in, and there's a huge fine, we get slapped with the fine and we pay it. If you have in-house security, that goes straight to the bar and the bar owner. I feel like the problem with internal house security is they might not be trained. They might be someone off the street. It could have been a patron who used to work there, and they're like, hey, do you guys want to come in here? And like, do you guys want to come here and do security? So they might not know. Maybe some of them do know. If they do know security, that is more helpful. The problem that I have is, you know, you become friends with the regulars there. So when they come in more intoxicated or more drunk, because you know them and you've seen them for the last 3 years of your life, or 2 or whatever, you're going to be more lenient and let them in, as compared to someone else who's like, hey, dude, this person's over intoxicated. You've had too much to drink. Like, you need to leave now. So those are the main things that I think the difference carried in the weight. But it's just, like I said, we pay we have like $3 million insurance on us for our security company because of the fact of all the liability that we do is out there and when we put out there. So we try to do the best job we can, but we're not always right. But it's really hard I feel like for a bar owner or a restaurant manager or owner, if they're, short on money, and if you're kind of broke and you're trying to maybe, save some money and hire this person in there, the only problem is going to be, if the responsibility is going to just basically lie on you. So.
Yeah. That liability component that comes up often in these groups. So let's see. We talked a little bit about where and what your security guards can do. If you were to kind of continue that conversation of like how to know when you need security, and you broaden it beyond like beyond a brick and mortar, like an event or an activation or a market or a farmer's market, what kinds of things do, I have friends who work over at the farmer's market on Capitol Hill. I actually don't know if they have security, but I do know that they often have really interesting stories in which might be helpful to have a trained professional around. So like, how do you make decisions about that? And what's your experience? I know you've run security in many different contexts, like for Pride and Trans Pride and different kinds of activations up on Capitol Hill. So tell us a little bit more about that.
I think if, it depends on the, like I said, going back to bar, restaurant, or event, if it's, if it's a busy, rowdy bar, a busy, rowdy place, or, it gets really crowded and the capacity is pretty much full every night, or let's just say you guys have trivia. You have a trivia night and it's bringing in more people to come in, and then more people are drinking, but then it's like, do you need probably one security guard to help out with that, as well as it all goes to is like with your staff. How many bartenders are on duty? Do you have one bartender or 3? If you have one bartender, does your bartender feel safe? Because there's no one there to protect him or her, So I think in that kind of atmosphere, if you find yourself thinking if it's already too much, then you most likely need a security guard. In the things for events, there's a number that we do try to stick with, as in, if there's alcohol being served, it's basically like one security guard every 75 people. If it's like a family function and there's no alcohol being served, it's more like one security guard every 150 people. And the thing is, unfortunately, us as being human beings, we're imperfect, and somebody needs to watch over us and make sure everything's okay. So I think, like I said, it just depends on the area, the location, the crime rate. If there's a lot of crime there, a lot of thieves there, if there's, nobody should feel unsafe to be a vendor where you work at in your workspace. So it's like, and if you are an owner, you need to make sure that your staff feels safe. It's bad enough, like we can barely get, I'm sure you guys are having the same issue we're having. It's very hard to find people with good work ethic and keep them going, and just having someone show up for work. But it's like, having them show up for work, they need what about their safety? Are they safe walking into their car? Do they feel safe in their bar? My girlfriend's a bartender on Capitol Hill, and she definitely is, beautiful and gorgeous, and she gets hit on in all the nasty wrong ways you can. And, she's trying to learn how to stick up for herself with her voice as much as she can, but it's like she's still not optimizing her own security at her place either. So her and I had that conversation the other day. So it's just, you just want to make sure the employees and patrons feel safe going into your bar or leaving your event. If someone comes to your event and they come home with a black eye and get beat up, not saying we cannot deter it all, we cannot stop all that, but we are trained for certain things to look for that the regular person isn't trained for. Mm-hmm. So I think that would help.
You brought up something, personal security, right? Like, as a person, do I feel confident and can I like engage with a space, in my own body, depending on how I look or how I present or how I show up in the world? Are there kind of tips or strategies that you would suggest for an individual, like maybe somebody who works behind a register or a bartender? What would you say to them, like how you can participate in your own safety? What kinds of strategies could they use?
The strategy you can use is definitely like, as a bartender, you want to try to pay attention to your patrons that are coming in and out, not over serving. If people, obviously if you see they're a little buzzed or maybe they're on their way of being drunk, or if you're not sure, I've literally kicked out a few women who have stilettos on and can't walk in them, and I think you're drunk, and they're just walking to me like this, so I'm saying you're drunk, and they're actually sober, and they've cussed me out, and they've been very upset, but I'm going to stand by my guns and do my job, and it's not my fault you can't walk in stilettos, but I thought you were drunk, My apologies, but you can't come in, so I think...
I can't walk in stilettos
I
either,
definitely can't walk in stilettos, no, for sure, so... But, I think it's just, self-awareness and being aware of the space you have, of the environment you're in, and the people that you see. And it's nothing wrong if you don't have security, if you find a nice gentleman patron or female patron, like, hey, can you maybe watch the bar for me so I can go, if this person looks drunk, I'm going to try to kick them out myself. Or, like, can you watch me so make sure this person doesn't beat me up? People are there to help us if you ask for it. So just kind of self-awareness and knowing your surroundings.
That's kind of a theme. You definitely called on community multiple times in your answers, and I think that's really cool and a different way of thinking about it, right? Like, know who's around you, make friends with the people that are around you, or use them to help you, like, manage situations.
That homeless man could be right there helping you out. See? Hey.
Who knew? Tell us a little bit more about, like, events, specifically on Capitol Hill. What has been your experience with events? How has community, I know there's like lots of different perspectives on like who should be working security at different events, particularly around Pride. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Who should be working security events on Pride should be me and my company, because we are the LGBTQIA plus ethnic ownership who we're planning on hopefully running it next year. But like I said, you also want to have people who live here. And back to the community again, like these are your people, your folks. These are people you see every day. These are people who lived here for 5 or 6 or 10 years. And when you have a Pride event, you want to make sure everyone like feels safe, and just back to the thing is respect. The common courtesy. I guess it's back to the basics of just you don't need someone who's like a super aggro a-hole because he's, been working for 10 hours and he's upset and he's just like, mean and rude to you. And I think that's what, going back to that simple, if someone's rude to you and you're drinking, now you're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to go punch this guy because he's being an a-hole to me. You know what I'm saying? And if this person was a little more cool, calm, and collective, like, hey, how you doing today? And if, a lot of people are upset on Pride and they're crying and their relationships are being broken up and they're, or they're feeling this way or they're feeling that way, or a person and their friend has died, like there's so many different things that go on in there. And then with alcohol involved, I've literally had, seen somebody crying and just, hey, how you doing? Can I help you? And then they lost their friend or their friend died or they're like super drunk. And then it's like, can I get you an Uber or Lyft home? Because you're not going to make it, in the next 30 minutes. Like, you need help. You need to be safe. So just all those kind of things to kind of look at. And it's just kind of the experience, the wisdom. Like I said, I've been on Capitol Hill for 10 years or more. I have a pretty good rapport with a lot of the business owners that I know, and I'm a very open and honest person, and I hope it stays that way.
So I was thinking as you're talking about like Pride-specific events, things that are like very kind of near and dear to the Capitol Hill community in terms of activations, but then there's also other kinds of things like big street festivals that come this way as well. Do you notice a big difference in like who attends like Pride versus Block Party, and are there different types of strategies that you use to address that?
It's definitely different. It all depends on, honestly, like the bands who's playing, like, you know what I mean? Because that does depend on the crowd. If it's, I think Capitol Hill Block Party this year, I'm kind of old, so there was a lot of like younger people, younger crowds, and it was definitely a different crowd than it was for Pride. But it's just, obviously, we're all, straight people, gay people. However, it's the same thing. Everyone reactions, how they drink, and how they, it's just alcohol has a very big impact. Period. Point blank. And if you notice on Pride and Capitol Hill Block Party, there's lots of security from different companies. There's security all over the place because everyone is trying to help other people. It definitely evolved. I think it definitely depends on who's singing, who's the event, and all that stuff like that. If it's, that's basically what it kind of goes on. But it's just every event is different. Each one, there's nothing the same, and there's always 8 to 10 people who are body slamming you, and you're throwing them. think a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely want to. I mean, the building. How many people are going to be in this building? Are you expecting like 40 to 50? 40 to 50 to 60 people in there, hundreds. Okay. So you're worried about people trying to be their safety coming in or their safety while they're inside? Both. Yeah, I think if you could get some, I'm not sure if you have security volunteers or like volunteers, or you can help them, or maybe hit me up, and if I can volunteer some of my time to come in and try to maybe help train a couple of your volunteers just on a couple basic things for like the homeless people to make them feel safe. I think it would depend on like the opening of the doors, the exits, how many of those that you have coming in and out, and then it could just be like one or two people just to kind of maybe someone stand outside and just, let them know where they're coming from, or on the corner, like, hey, you're coming in this direction, you're coming here. Mental health is a very different type of, it's an untapped source, and I can't give you a specific wrong or right answer for mental health. I personally have been dealing with it. My mother's bipolar, so it's a little bit of helpful. I try to deal with mental health as well as I can as a human being and a person. But I can only, try to share my knowledge. I'll give you my information. I would definitely like to get more into this, and I can think about it a little bit more if that's okay. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
No? Sweet, I'm off the hook? Oh, here we go. Definitely get yourself a pack of cigarettes. Smokes definitely help. Honestly, just to be, if you know, I think the reassurance, to reassure someone, like I said, going back to, you're here to help them, you're not here to hurt them, or if you can guide them, like, hey, you're making these people a little bit scared. If you just kind of talk to them with confidence, it depends on the person if you're able to actually like put your hand on them and touch them or not. You have to go like read that vibe yourself. I think if you I make people feel very close to me, very intimate, and then where I am very confident in myself, and you have to be able to so I could talk you through it, talk you out of it, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put my arm around your shoulder because we're cool like that, give you this cool cigarette, and I'm gonna light it for you, and then I'm gonna send you on your way. So if that kind of helps a bit. Like I said, with the de-escalation techniques, there's a lot of, let's see, what did I have here? Yeah, basically asking friends for help, calm demeanor, make them feel like they're a human being, and I think that helps a lot. That's really good insight. Just learning how to, like I said, making people feel human and safe space. That goes a long way. And if someone else sees you doing it, then maybe they'll participate as well in the future, not just you doing it yourself.
I think about when I was managing Starbucks downtown and trying to like distill this into a training for my little baristas. We'll work on it. Were there other questions? Yeah.
Ooh, thanks a lot. Good question. Obviously, technology is on the uprise and the upscale. I think I've heard of some a couple scanners that are used for maybe some people have a program at like a nightclub or a bar that's busy to where an ID is ran, and the person who watches the security at the end of the night, the footage, they have these certain people, I think like on a yellow, red, or green scale of, if they were, sexually harassing someone, if they got crazy with the bouncer, if they got in a fight, if they got this or if they got that. They kind of get yellow or red flag. That way the next time they try to come in, they run their name on the scanner and it shows that they're 86, so they won't allow them in. So that's pretty much, I think, kind of really new technology that I've heard of for security. There's also, too, they have cameras. We have, like, obviously, like the vests, the bulletproof vests, and they want us to have cameras on there, and then there's, like, a taser, and I just don't feel very comfortable with those kind of things. I feel that's very police-like, and I know the camera is basically for us, for our protection, if someone says we did this and we actually didn't. So there's lots of technology out there. There's a lot of things that are in the works. I don't know all of them. I'm not a very tech person yet. I'm not too tech savvy. I'm learning. So I don't know if that helps you answer your question, but yes.
You did it.
I did it. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all. And yeah. I have some cards if you guys want to just extra knowledge. If I can help you out with anything, I would love to. If I could try and volunteer any of my time. I am a small business owner, but if I can, I would love to help anyone I can. Thank you so much.